Okay, let's continue by talking about the other conditional sentences that exist in English. In the other PowerPoint on the future, we did discuss future possible. And so let's begin and talk about the other two conditional sentences that exist. The first one is called present impossible or present unreal. The second one is called past impossible or past unreal. And basically, both of these conditions are impossible or unreal because in order for these conditions to exist, you would need to be able to go into the past to change something so that the present or the past would be different. And as you probably know, it's quite impossible at this time to go into the past to change things. So let's talk about the present impossible. Here we have a timeline, and the whole concept of this particular one is that if I were to change something in the past, it would then change my present tense. So my if clause or my when clause would be simple past tense, and the then clause would be in the present tense. Note that we use would, could, and should when we use present tense. So here's an example. This comes from an old ad for Oscar Mayer wieners, which are hot dogs. And they had a song that said, "If I were an Oscar Mayer wiener, if I were a hot dog, everyone would be in love with me." And as you can see, the first verb, were, is in the simple past tense, in the if clause or the when clause. And the second part has the present tense be following the word would. Okay, you should know that after would, could, or might, we will not conjugate the verb to be. We just use the present tense, the particle. So everyone would be in love with me. Okay, which means basically if you look at the picture that if this is true here, then this is true in the present tense. Please note that we would not say if I was an Oscar Mayer wiener because the verb to be in the form was is only reserved for things that are possible, and we have decided that in English we will use the word were for all situations that are unreal or impossible. So as you can guess, it's impossible for me to be an Oscar Mayer wiener, and so everyone will not be in love with me because I'm a hot dog. Okay, so note again that were is in the simple present, and that for the second part we use would, could, or might to talk about the second part in the simple present as well. Okay, by the way, would is a modal auxiliary that talks about intention. Could is a modal auxiliary that talks about ability, and might is also about intention, but very, very, very unlikely, whereas would is 100%. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at the other one, even though it's not necessary for your course. Let's have a look at it. It's using a new verb tense that you haven't learned yet. It's called past impossible, and the idea here is that in the first condition, the first past tense would happen, and then there would be a second past tense that would happen, and this second past tense is so important to me now that it makes some difference in my present tense. We call this verb tense in English the present perfect. It's a past tense that has not finished, okay? So it began in the past, it affects me now, present perfect. And so for this particular conditional, we would put the first past tense, the old one, in the past perfect, the second one in the present perfect. Okay? So how do you make a past perfect or a present perfect? In English, you would do that by using the auxiliary to have and the past participle. So the past perfect, of course, would be the past tense of the auxiliary to have, I had gone, which tells you that this action is complete before the second action, which is I have gone, which means that the action began in the past and continues till the present tense. Okay? So here's some examples. If I had studied, I would have passed the test. Means that si j'avais étudié, j'aurais pu, j'aurais passé l'examen. Okay, so would talks about the intention, 100% intention I would have had to pass the test. In the second idea, we can say the same thing, but I can be less certain. I said if I had studied, I might have passed the test. This means I didn't study, but if I had, there was a small chance that I pass the test. And the last one, using the word could, doesn't talk about intention at all. It talks about the possibility, the ability that I had. So I'm telling you that if I had studied, but I didn't, I had the ability to pass the test, but I didn't. Okay, so this is just as we say in French, à titre d'exemple. You don't need this one for the exam, but you do need the other one. So take a look at it. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in class. Thanks.